Ready for a deep dive? We're going to be talking about eco-spirituality today.
Really interesting stuff.
It's more than just like, a trendy thing.
Yeah, definitely not just for our Instagram bios.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's way deeper than that. It's really about this like ancient bond between humans and the environment,
It's recognizing that connection.
recognizing it, yeah,
Yeah.
and honoring it.
It's funny because you think about eco-spirituality and you're like, oh, is this like a new agey kind of thing? But it's really not.
No, not at all. It's ancient. I mean, this whole idea
It's ancient wisdom.
of the earth as sacred, as something to revere, not just exploit, that goes way back. It's like woven into, I think, human history, really. And we see it so clearly, like in indigenous cultures all over the world.
Yeah, it makes you think about those cultures who have lived in harmony with nature for, centuries, right? They really embody that connection.
Exactly, exactly. They've been living it. And for them, it's not just a place to live. The earth is alive, it's sacred, it deserves respect. Like take the Native American concept of Mother Earth.
Right, Mother Earth. We hear that term a lot. But
Right.
what's the deeper significance there?
So imagine the earth as like this nurturing mother providing everything, sustenance, shelter, everything.
It's that life-giving force.
Exactly. And it's not just symbolic.
Yeah.
They honor this connection through ceremonies like the sun dance, which is all about gratitude, connecting with the earth's energy.
Oh, wow. So it's about recognizing that dependence and giving thanks.
Yes, absolutely. And we see this in other cultures too. Look at the Australian Aboriginals, their Dreamtime stories.
Dream time, what's that all about?
So these are their creation myths, right? They explain how ancestral spirits actually formed the land.
Wow, so their whole history is intertwined with the land itself.
Totally. And it's not just stories, right? It's a powerful way to pass down this like environmental ethic.
It's like their responsibility to care for it?
Exactly. Imagine growing up with those stories. You grew up believing you have to care for the land because it was given to you and trusted to you by like these sacred beings.
It's like a sacred trust.
It is.
Wow. It makes you realize how much we've lost touch with that feeling of responsibility.
Yeah.
But it's not just the Americas and Australia, right?
Yeah.
Where else are we seeing these deep connections?
Let's go to Africa,
Yeah.
to the Yoruba people. They have this idea of Orisha.
Orisha, okay.
Have you heard of that?
I haven't, no.
So think of Orisha as like spirits or deities, powerful forces.
Okay.
But each Orisha is connected to nature. There's an Orisha of the river, the trees, the wind.
Oh, interesting. So each part of nature has its own guardian, its own
Exactly. Its own
spirituality.
spinality. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to respect them. So the Yoruba, they offer sacrifices, prayers to keep things in balance with these natural forces.
It's amazing to me how these ancient cultures, they wove this respect for nature into their whole way of life, their spiritual practices.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Makes you wonder how we got so disconnected.
It really does. But it's interesting, this reverence for nature, it's not just indigenous cultures. We see it pop up in Eastern and Western traditions too, like threads through history.
It's like, yeah, you think about Eastern traditions like Buddhism, it just makes sense. It's all about mindfulness and being present, just like you would be in nature.
It makes sense, right? Because when you think about meditation, which is like what the heart of Buddhist practice, they do that in nature,
Here.
right? Under a tree, by a stream. It's about realizing that we're a part of it, not separate.
Yeah, like finding that peace within by connecting to the peace outside.
That's it. And then you have Taoism with this idea of Wu Wei.
Wu Wei, okay.
It's often translated as effortless action or like going with the flow, which
It sounds great, but what does that even mean to actually like live that way, especially when we're talking about eco-spirituality?
okay, so picture this.
Uh-huh.
A leaf floating down a stream, right? It doesn't fight the current. It just goes with it. That's Wu Wei.
Okay, I see.
It's about trusting those natural rhythms, not trying to force our will on things, but like working with them instead.
So instead of trying to control everything, we find a way to like move with it.
Exactly. And the cool thing is we see these echoes of eco-spirituality in the West too, like with the ancient Greek Stoics.
Oh, right. The Stoics. Weren't they all about logic and reason?
They were, but they also believed in living in accordance with nature. They saw the universe as this giant interconnected organism, which is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
So it's not just about us, it's about realizing everything is like connected.
Exactly. To be wise for them meant you understood your place in it all, that we're not the center of the universe, which I think is something we could all use a reminder of sometimes.
For sure. So we've got the Stoics with their interconnectedness, Who else fits into this eco-spirituality idea from the West?
Well, we can't forget the mystics,
Hmm.
right? Like those deeply spiritual people who had these really profound experiences in nature.
Oh, right, right.
Someone like St. Francis of Assisi comes to mind.
St. Francis, yeah, he was the patron saint of animals, right? So it makes sense that he'd be super connected to nature.
Absolutely. He had this incredible love for all creatures.
Yeah.
He saw nature as a manifestation of God, something to be treasured and protected.
It's just amazing to me how, whether it's East or West, across all these different cultures and time periods, it's like this one idea keeps coming up again and again, that our own well-being is tied to how we treat the planet.
It's a powerful connection. And this whole idea, it didn't just vanish after the ancient world either. It pops up again in more modern times.
That's right. It was like a resurgence of that nature-based spirituality in like the 19th and 20th centuries. So you've gone from like ancient traditions all the way to these more modern ways of thinking about eco-spirituality.
But a journey.
But it's not just like an intellectual thing, right? It's got to be about action too.
It's like having a seed and not planting it.
Yeah,
What's the point?
totally. So how do we actually live this out? Like if someone's listening and they're feeling that pull towards nature, where do they even begin?
Well, there's so many paths you could take.
Hmm.
Think about what we've talked about already: yoga, meditation, just being out in nature.
Right, right.
These aren't just like trendy things to do. They're tools.
They help us cultivate that inner peace.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And when you find that peace within,
yeah,
it changes how you interact with the world.
yeah.
It's like you're more aware, more intentional. You feel that responsibility.
And then that can lead to like environmental activism, right? Like actually fighting to protect these
Yeah,
places.
absolutely. It's a natural progression.
Mhm.
For some people, that's how it manifests. It's about walking the walk. Yeah.
It is. It's like once you realize we're not separate from nature, harming the planet is like harming yourself. It's personal.
And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't have to be these huge, sweeping gestures. Even small changes make a difference.
It's those little things done with intention that really matter.
Exactly. What speaks to you? Maybe it's starting each morning with gratitude for the natural world or planting a garden.
You know what? I actually started doing this gratitude practice recently. Every morning, I just take a minute to appreciate something in nature. The warmth of the sun, the sound of birds. It's amazing how much it shifts my perspective.
That's wonderful, see? And there's so many ways to bring that awareness in. Choosing sustainable products, supporting companies that care about the environment.
It's about being mindful with every choice.
Yes, every little thing adds up. It creates a ripple effect way beyond just ourselves.
It's powerful. This whole conversation has been amazing. We've covered so much ground, ancient wisdom, modern movements, and even like practical steps we can take.
It's a journey.
It really is. And as we all continue on this path, we want to leave you with one last thought. If all life really is interconnected, like these traditions suggest, how do you think your actions ripple out and affect the world, even in ways you can't see?
Something to think about.
It really is. It makes you realize how much we can still learn from these ancient ways of being. Thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive. I know I'm going to be reflecting on this for a long time.